And good morning. Welcome to a special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and I am very, very pleased to have joining me in the studio this morning the general manager, station manager, and the purpose of her being on the show is to allow us to have an opportunity to reflect on a young man who served in the role of several hats in the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan. And that young man was a gentleman, and I say the word gentle man, and his name was Hubert Yap. And joining me in this journey today, we are very blessed to have none other than Miss Maxine D. Willis on this journey today with us to give an opportunity to go and reflect on the life and the legacy of the Honorable Miss Willis. It is a plum-pleasing pleasure to have you to join me today on the set today. Thank you for being a part of this journey today.
I am deeply honored to be here today. Anytime I can sit in this spot and use my voice to be able to inspire, to uplift, to clarify, to talk about this station, to talk about champions and cheerleaders that have helped us to be the media hub that we are right here in the city of Highland Park. And Mayor Yap was certainly one of our cheerleaders and champions that we are truly going to miss. And we thank God for his presence here at this station. We thank God for his support and belief in Mr. R.J. Watkins. As a matter of fact, he appointed Mr. Watkins as fire chief and police commissioner. And that's a high honor that Mr. Watkins was very pleased with, very honored, very humbled to have that position. So it is a loss for the Highland Park community, but as was mentioned in his service, his legacy will live on through his family. It will certainly live on with this station, that we will certainly continue to, in every way that we can, honor his legacy.
You know, it's interesting, Ms. Willis, that everybody has stories to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the stories that when you and I and Mr. Watkins and many, many others that were there at the homegoing service for Mayor Yap this past Tuesday over at Greater Grace Church, that there's so many people that have been touched by him.
Yes.
He was Mr. Highland Park.
That's
right.
right.
When you
That's
think
right.
about the city of Highland Park, there are names that pretty much like resound throughout the city.
That's
right.
right.
We've got a lot of people that, as we know, that when you mention Highland Park, you think about the Honorable Alexis Ramsey's.
Yes.
You think in terms of, say, about the Honorable Commissioner Martha Scott.
Yes, that's my girl.
You even had a young man who came with his mother to the service. And even though it's unfortunate that he had suffered from a few medical challenges where he had been suffered from a stroke, but he still wanted to come and pay his respects.
Right.
And that was the Honorable Mayor Wyndham.
Yes. Yes.
And he wanted to make sure that he got up on the, in the pulpit to let the Highland Parkers know how much Mayor Yap meant to him.
Absolutely.
And not only did he communicate how he felt by his presence being up on the pew, but also by his mother
That's right.
being there in
Yes.
attendance with him
Yes.
to be able to go and communicate what he was feeling. And then I was looking at him as he was standing there next to his mother.
Yes.
And just the way his people communicate in a lot
In
of
a
different
lot of
ways.
different ways. That's right.
Verbal and sometimes nonverbal communication. And sometimes, Ms. Willis, in the media, we sometimes have a way of communicating nonverbal
That's right.
with some of the gestures
That's
that we
right.
make. And I noticed that Mayor Wyndham, one of the things that he did was that he went and did like especially a lot of people do that. Especially I see a lot of men do that, where we'll go and we're touched by something that somebody says,
Right.
and we'll put our hand over our heart,
That's
to
right.
let you know this is heartfelt.
That's right.
And it's also heart's work.
Right.
Because I tell people over and over again, when something is not hard work, it's heart's work.
That's right.
And that's the one thing that I found with Mayor Yap, that he put his heart
Yes, he
into
did.
his work.
Yes, he did.
And when you have people that not only can witness it, but can feel it,
That's right.
that makes a big
Big
difference.
difference.
Right there. Just like you talk about, President Watkins, here at the station. He's put his heart
That's
into the work
Heart and
that he's
soul.
done
Yes.
with the multitudes of people that have transcended into the station.
That's right.
Not just in terms of, say, back in the day when WGPR was in existence, with him and others that, did the scene,
That's right.
but then transcended into RJ and Henry Tyler
That's right.
here at WHPR. And, where the messaging, the guests that you've been so, fortunate to get on the show with us have been able to go and get their messaging across.
That's right.
And I thank you. This is from my heart that you allowed me to have an opportunity and a platform in this Truth to Power to be able to go and get a lot of guests that we've had to be on the show, from Congress people. We've had Jim Clyburn.
Yes.
We've had Jasmine Crockett.
Yes.
We've had Senator Cory Booker.
That's
We've
right.
had LaFonza Butler, the senator
Yes.
from California, and
Mayor
how
of Chicago.
Mayor of Chicago,
Yeah.
the Attorney General from
That's right.
Nevada, and we've also had our newly elected senator from the phenomenal state of Michigan, in Alyssa Slotkin.
That's right.
That was here
That's
also.
right.
And then, fortunate that we've also had the Congresswoman, Haley Stevens has
that's
come
right.
on the
Oh,
show.
yeah. She lit this stage
as,
up.
as she said to you, Mrs. Willis, this is her family.
That's what she said.
And she looked directly at you and said, you are now part of my extended
She
family.
sure did.
And whenever you need an opportunity for a congressperson to come on and talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. with President 47 and, and that
Right.
she would love to come back on, and discuss that. And also we've had locally, we've had state reps from Donovan McKinney.
That's right.
We've had Brenda Carter.
That's right. Oh,
And
yes. Mr.
we've got
Wheeler. Hester Wheeler.
Hester Wheeler.
Yeah,
Well, Hester
yeah.
Wheeler, is got so many different hats that he wears throughout the state.
Right.
Having been the Deputy Secretary of State. Hester also was with the, I believe he was also with the Fire Department in the city of
Yes.
Detroit. He was also the Wayne County Deputy Assistant or
That's right.
Assistant Deputy Director
Right.
for County Executive for
That's
Wayne
right.
County under Robert Ficano when Robert Ficano was the
I remember
Wayne County
that.
Executive. And then also in the multitudes of other things that he's done throughout his tenure with being the Executive Director for the Detroit branch of NAACP.
CP. That's right.
But and then the interesting part about this, with my journey with Truth to Power is that he was the second show that we did. He was the guest
Yes.
on the second
That's-
show that we
that's
did.
right. That's
And then when we
right.
had him back on the show, later, after we had did, many months of Truth to Power, he came back on the show.
Came
again,
back on the show.
to-
Yes, he did.
and it's so it's so unfortunate that probably the only person that I wanted to have to come on the show would have been Mayor Yap, because
Yes.
even when I had the assistant mayor or the deputy mayor of the city of Detroit, Malia Howard, come on the show, and then also Asad Turfi, the
That's right. Yeah.
deputy Wayne County executive,
Executives.
and I do want to thank Safe Al for, providing that opportunity
That's right.
to have Asad Turfi, the deputy Wayne County executive, to come on, the show. And then, and then the other thing that we've had too is that we've had C. Pascal Isi
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've had Ashley Lewis,
That's
who
right.
works with LaShawn English, who's the director for UAW Region 1. My memory is really trying to kind of, it's
and I'm
testing
sitting
me,
here saying, we've done this right here. at
trying to
that
remember
station.
all. But Mayor Yap was the one
Yes.
person that I was hoping and praying that his health would have allowed him to be able to come on
Right.
and talk about Highland Park. I remember when he had asked me years ago they were doing a kind of like a retrospective of Highland Park, and they were talking about the history of Highland
Okay.
Park. And Yap knows that I'm, a history buff. And he had asked me, Darwin, would you put something together and speak to? We were over at the Rec Center with
Okay.
Sue and others, with Highland Park. And it was a Kwanzaa celebration, matter of fact.
Oh, okay.
And he had asked me to be the speaker for this event. And I reflect back into a good friend of mine, King Coleman, who's kind of like a historian for the city of Detroit.
Okay.
And I kind of channeled some, my friend King Coleman, with trying to figure out how to, put some things together. So it was so interesting just talking about the city of Highland Park and how Highland Park got its name, Highland Park.
Okay.
And some of that was attributed to Mr. Ford, from Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
And then looking at one of the things I talked about was how the city of Highland Park has transformed. And Mayor Yap and I were talking about how, Manchester Street
Okay.
was like the hub
Okay.
of Highland Park. When we think back to some of the things that Highland Park had,
Okay.
here in existence, from Highland Appliance.
Yeah, that's right.
You think
That's
about
right.
the Red Barn.
Yeah,
You think about
yeah.
the Sears. You think about the Kresge's and
That's
some other,
right.
places
Yeah.
that were in existence, throughout. But when we talk about Highland Park and talk about what's existed in the city of Highland Park. We're hoping that we'll have other people that may want to call in and, and even to drop by the station to talk about Highland Park. But one thing I want to do before we really kind of go a little bit deeper into the reflections of Mayor Yap and the contributions that he made here, I think about another person who's also a living legacy, and that is a gentleman, my friend, and his name is Keith Bennett. Keith Bennett just celebrated, I'll let him tell you, because he may not want everybody to know how old he is, but he celebrated another trip around the sun yesterday. And he knew Mayor Yap quite well, as well. And one of the things that I hear from people like Keith Bennett, from people like Darrell Woods, the commissioner, from people like Ishmael Terry, that when they refer to Mayor Yap, they say, my guy.
My guy.
And that's the first thing that comes out of their mouths is the fact that he was my guy. But Keith, are you on the line with us?
Good morning. I'm here. Good morning. Good morning.
Keith, I just want to give you the happy birthday greetings from another fellow black brickmaster, and from our station manager, Maxine Willis, to give you an opportunity to talk about. We'll talk about Mayor Yap in a few, but I want to give you an opportunity to go and talk about the outpouring of love and affection that you got from so many people over at Greater Grace last night.
Well, thank you again for having me on the show. But I'm gonna start off with the giant, Mayor Yap. As you said, my guy. I'm gonna start with him.
Okay.
I don't mind going second fiddle to Giant. Never had. And so I met him through Martha Scott. That's how I met him. For another giant. And he was a connector of black men. People didn't understand that part of Martha Scott's role was a connector. And so she connected me with him. And when I met him, he talked to me as if he knew me already. And I'm looking at him like, we just meeting. But he knew me. He knew my footprint. He knew my work. And he judged me from my heart. And so that told me who he was. Because you hear people's names before you meet them. And what you want to do is when you meet them, that they live up to that name. He lived up to his name and beyond that. So I'm ever indebted. He would call me. He would talk to me about different things. He respected me, and I respected him. And so, when you hear about these kind of people, they're legends. And we have to keep the Africans say you have to keep putting their name out in the environment so that they're never forgotten. And I'll never forget Mayor Yap. Wow. So that's my recommendation of him. He was my guy. But I want to think that we were his guy. He was my guy. We were his guy. And so that's my memory of him. Last night was unbelievable. Number one, it was supposed to have been a surprise party.
Yeah.
You know how Detroit is. Nothing is a surprise.
So who do you think, Keith, leaked out the surprise?
I
mean, we got a lot of suspects, but
I can name about 20 people that we could do forensics on, and they got their fingerprint something on something.
Do we start from height and go from tallest to shortest?
Let me see. No, we start from short. Okay. But it was interesting because once I got in the wind that something was going on, my birthday was yesterday, which is a Thursday. I'm thinking they're not doing anything on a Thursday. Everybody got to get up and go to work, get kids in school, and some of us old timers got to go to bed early, things of that nature. And so I'm giving people the wrong information when they call me like, brother, your party, I'm not invited, or what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know anything about that. And they wouldn't believe me. And so I'm giving them the wrong information. I'm saying it's got to be Friday. And so last weekend, one of the shortest people, one of my sisters, and a few of them leaked it out, and they said, you need to call your son and talk to him. And my son told me, he said, all I need you to do, and so I had a cousin who's younger than me named Chase Fields, and I was talking to him. He asked me, what you doing on your birthday, cuz? I said, well, I got to go over to flip the script, talk to my people, then I got to run a couple of errands, and I'm going to get a haircut Thursday evening. He said, cuz, whatever you do, don't get a haircut Thursday. What do you mean I can't get a haircut? He said, cuz, I can't stay anymore. Don't get a haircut Thursday. And so with that, Randy Henry, who's the tallest, told me the same thing. I can't say anything. Talk to your son. And so I did talk to my son Sunday. He said, I need you at Greater Grace Temple. Because I didn't know even where it would be. I didn't know what time. He said, I need you to be there at 6:15. No earlier than that, 6:15. And he knows I'm a man about the time and promptness. He said, that's all I need you to do, is just to be there. So when I walked in and I saw what I saw, it was unbelievable. Because I saw people from every decade of my life. Wow. Can you imagine that? Every decade of my life, I saw people there. I saw people who were special to me, that maybe they didn't even know they were that special, but people knew I had mentioned their names and my respect for them. I saw my family. I saw my family, who's most of them are older than me now, there. We don't have a large family anymore because God has saw fit to take those others home. And so it was just amazing, and the room kept getting filled up. And once the program started, to have Bishop Chewy from the Shrine of the Black Madonna open it with a prayer touched me like nothing. He went on to share how we met inside prisons, but he had heard of me, but had never met me. I had heard of him. And it was people like Daryl Woods that asked me, have you met, he was Cardinal Chewy at that time. I said, no, I've heard of him, he's a legend. And he would go in and they would ask him, have you met Keith Bennett? People like Daryl Woods. And he would say, no, but I've heard of him. His name is everywhere. He comes in here, I just haven't ran across him. So it was just dynamic people who were from Goodwill Industries that I worked with for 20 years, people from Star Commonwealth that I worked with. It was just overwhelming, Darwin and Ms. Willis. It was just unbelievable. And when you hear people saying things about you that you thought you had kept buried in you, I'm a very private person. Darwin would tell you this. Now, people think I'm a public person. I'm the opposite. I really don't want you to know. I really try to keep you away because I was so focused on what God had intended for me to do. And so I shared a story last night. It was important. I told everybody else where they fit into my life in the journey. And I shared a story that I used to hang out in the streets and nightclubs at one time. And some of the people in the room knew that. And we all laughed. I didn't know the difference between day and night because I was just gone. And there was a favorite song by the Cameo, I just want to be what I want to be. That's all I wanted to be. I just wanted to be who I wanted to be. And I wanted to be a basketball coach. But God saw fit to change my life. Wow. And he decided that I want you to be this for the people who need you in their life. And you need to be this for them. So a lot of the things I did over my 40-plus year career was for those I served. It wasn't natural. It is not natural. Listen to what I'm saying. It is not natural for a black man to serve other black men.
Wow.
That's not natural. It's just, that's not who we really are. We're used to being served. Even our backgrounds as African, we were kings. Kings were served. And so 40 years, I served men who sometimes turned their back on me, sometimes didn't understand me, sometimes pushed back, but I got more love than anything. So that was a process that they gave back to me last night. These people told me who I was, and they framed it around my character, and I can't ask for anything more than that, my character and my heart. Because if you were around me long enough, if you can test, I'm going to make some mistakes. But thank God that we got some people in Detroit and Highland Park and southeastern Michigan area that have judged me for my heart, my character, and the outcomes of my work. So that's what I heard last night. And I got so many gifts. I got a belt, a championship belt.
I saw that. I mean, I'm looking at your pictures. I thought that when I looked and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna name any wrestlers in particular when you think about the
Right.
WWE,
Right.
but
Well,
it's
I ain't
like,
wrestling to nobody. There's two things. If you hear me passing away anytime in the next 20 years, 30 years, it didn't come from wrestling or running. To be honest with you, that it didn't come from that. But I was very close to Emmanuel Stewart. I did a lot of work with him, and nobody knew because our relationship. A lot of my relationships are personal and private to me because I protect those relationships. And so Rhonda Mitchell, Cheetah Mitchell, who was around, but she was a young lady at that time, she knew, she remembered that I was doing a lot with Emmanuel. I was doing a lot with Prime that people just didn't know because I've always been happy being in the background. But they made me come out front last night, and that was kind of uncomfortable. I had Robert Thornton there. I
saw Robert.
Stephen Grady Muhammad was there. I just had all kind of people. I had just people from every walk of life that's been a part of my life for 70 years.
Well, Keith, I want to hold that thought because I don't want you to go anywhere. So stay. We got to take a quick break. So please stay on the line because I want to get some reflections from you real quick about what would your mother have said to you.
Okay.
Wow. So I want you to, I'm going to give you some time to kind of wipe the moisture that might pop up in your eyes during this time. But we'll be right back. So we'll be right back with Keith Bennett, my co-host today on this journey, Maxine Willis. I'm Darwin Griffin. We'll be right back. And we are back, and we are joined on this special edition of Truth to Power as we honor the legacy of the Honorable Mayor of Highland Park, Hubert Yap. And I'm joined by our general manager, station manager for WHPR TV, Ms. Maxine Willis. And we're also joined on the phone by the gentleman that guest hosted the show last Friday.
Sure, and did a fantastic job.
And Keith, I'm hearing that you did a phenomenal job on the show last Friday. So I definitely want to thank you for, bringing truth to power when you talked about spiritual warfare with your special guest, Pastor McClendon, and with Dr. Lockett. So again, thank you again, Keith, for for handling that matter.
Me, I was waddling around in your footprints, but I kind of found my way midway, So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I know when I got here to the station, you left a legacy here and some big footsteps for me to try and, wade through. So, your impressions are very, very far reaching, throughout, which was evident from, the outpouring of support that you got, last night. And I know that looking at some of the people that were there, listening to some of the tributes, looking at the pictures, looking at the videos, that it was a real phenomenal opportunity to have some good people to do that. So I think the thing that I'm looking at when it comes down to you is that you have the opportunity to be someone that people really want to give the flowers to. Because, I'm thinking about you yesterday, Keith. You went and spoke to some young men over at Flip the Script yesterday morning. Is that correct?
That is correct. I got the invitation about 6 weeks ago to come over and speak to the incoming group, which they've been blessing me with and allowing me to do for the last year or so. And when I got it, I looked at it, and it was on my birthday, and I just smiled. I didn't say anything. And so Gregory Anderson, who's now the director of Flip the Script, and as of next week will be the vice president of Goodwill Industries of Greater Detroit, said, that's your birthday. I said, well, what do you want me to say? That's what God wants me. And so they had a bet over there if I would show, and it was split down the middle. He's not going to show it's his birthday, or he's going to show. But I knew that if it was God's will, I had to be there. Who better would God want me to be with on my 70th birthday, on any birthday, but the men and women that he gave me purpose through their lives. And so everybody is thanking me for things, and that's what I shared last night. Let me thank the community, because you've given me an opportunity. You gave me an opportunity, a lifetime, that's to serve my people and to serve black men, to lift black men, to frame black men, to market black men, and to market black men that nobody else trusted, wanted to touch, wanted back in the community. And I was the welcome home for about 30 years. And so I started my piece. It was just tributes. They were lined up to give me these tributes. And because of the time, we didn't have time for everybody to really speak other than 3 minutes or so, and most people couldn't speak. But I started my message back to them with a letter that my mother had written me, and I pulled it out of my Bible intentionally a couple of days ago. My mother left me a red book, and in that red book is her letters to her child that goes back 30 years, before I knew this. When she died, her best friend called and said, Claudia had a red. I said, I found it. She said she wanted you to get that book. That's books or letters from my grandmother to her, letters to her to me. That's biblical text, daily words where she framed and gave me her thoughts when she was going through quadruple heart transplant, the thought when she was going through breast cancer, the thoughts when she saw me going through transitions. So I pulled that letter out, and I started reading it to those who had came to honor me. I said, see, you're honoring her. And so she talked about things that her mother taught her. She said, my mother taught me that you are the people you surround yourself with. And I looked in that room. I said, you see you guys, right? You see who surrounded me. And then she talked about that she had made some mistakes bringing me up. And so I spoke to the adults in there who were parents. I said, we make mistakes. Understand, we as parents make mistakes. I said, and I could tell my mother that. She said, just keep it respectful. And so she would tell me. My mother never talked at me. She really never talked with me, to me. She talked with me. And she was a very spiritual lady. She died with 9 Bibles in the house. 7 of them she used religiously. And when I went in her house after she died, she had left certain Bibles open to certain things she wanted me to see and read. She actually left her goodbye letter in one of them. So I shared that with them. And I said, and she said she made mistakes. And I turned and I looked at my son. I said, understand, I made mistakes. I looked at my granddaughter. Understand, I made mistakes. But I looked at the young people, and I said, we make mistakes. Give each other some grace. And so the community has given me grace for 40 years. I rarely said no to Detroit from my teen years until about 3 years ago. And they wasn't ready for me to start saying no. And I have said no recently because God had me doing some different things. So that's what I talked about. The message was we as a community have to start giving each other some grace and judging each other by the content of our character and the outcomes of our work. And that's what I talked about last night. And I talked about that I surrounded myself. And my ex-wife used to say when we were dating, it's nowhere in Detroit you can't go that you don't know somebody. She said, but you know, Keith Bennett, you know what? You know every crook. You know every ex-con. You know all the bad guys in Detroit. And I would grin at her and look, and I said, yeah. And they welcomed me with open arms. And so I shared that last night. Although I surrounded myself with people that nobody else wanted to be surrounded with, all I did was give them love, and they've given it back, not just to me. They're giving it back to the community. Raphael Johnson was there last night, and I know people in the community know who Raphael Johnson is.
Oh, yeah.
And he stood and he looked at me and he said, you know, big bro, you turning 70. I'm the age now that we met at. And, man, we broke down in tears.
Well, you know, the thing is, Keith, it's one thing to go and be a person that can get the outpouring of support, but it's another thing to bring humility into another black man's eyes. And that's what you got last night. And that's what you're getting every time you come into a room. Your presence radiates that. And we are joined by, it's almost like making me think, back in the day when they used to have those shows, This Is Your Life, Keith Bennett. Last night was your life, Keith Bennett, but you were able to witness your life, Keith Bennett. Not through an obituary, not through somebody putting flowers on a grave or on a casket, but you were able to go and receive the flowers and smell the flowers as they were being presented to you. And because this is your life, Keith Bennett, we are joined here in the studio by another living legacy here in the phenomenal city of Detroit, who also transcends not just in terms of, say, in his presence, but in his words that he disseminates out to so many people, especially the young people that need to hear the words from the Honorable, and it's interesting me saying this because I'm like, the Honorable Police Commissioner for the phenomenal city of Detroit, Michigan, Mr. Darrell Woods.
How you doing, brother? It's good to be here. It's good to see my good friend and brother and comrade and one of my mentors on there, Keith Bennett. I hate that I was not able to make it to his birthday celebration, and
he's not telling how old he is. So
he's 75.
Well, Darrell met me when I had hair, so he know I'm
yeah. But I called him early this morning. It's ironic.
He did tell me that.
I didn't even know that he was going to be on here. And
well, this was a surprise to Commissioner Woods.
Yes.
For this at the same time.
Yes.
So this is kind of like giving you a This Is Your Life, Commissioner Woods, as well as This Is Your Life, Keith Bennett.
Absolutely, man. I met Keith when I was condemned to life without the possibility of parole, man. Keith came behind bars, wrapped his arms around us, was able to participate in a lot of programs that we were sponsoring through the Detroit branch of NAACP under the leadership of Reverend Wendell Anthony. And Keith came in consistently, and he helped hundreds of men coming out of that prison system. When I had life, I would send him to flip the script. He wrapped his arms around my son and helped encourage my son while I was incarcerated, and was able to speak into his life and to encourage him while his dad was condemned to die in prison. And so Keith is a precious friend of mine and brother, and that's why I called him early this morning. We had to put out some fires at the Border Police Commission, so we were there late last night and had to deal with some matters. But I called him so I can send him some money, to try to make up for me not being there.
Dollar signs go across the phone. I would have rolled out
but he's just worthy of that, and money is not good enough for him. He deserved the love that he received on last night. He deserved all of the honors. This man is a trailblazer in the city of Detroit, in the state of Michigan. I think he might have been a Michigander of the Year one time. I don't know. But he's someone that I deeply admire, deeply respect, and highly regard, just like yourself. You guys are cut from a cloth that is totally different than what we see out here. You both are very humble men, loving men, and a man's man. Men, I can look to you guys and be encouraged and be inspired to say that, hey, I want to hold on to y'all coattails and continue to do the work out here that you guys have been doing for decades.
But see, Commissioner, and I'm she's calling you Darrell, but it's
you can call me Darrell, man, please.
But as Keith will tell you, we've had some giants here.
Yes.
In the station, and one of the other giants that we had was Ishmael Terry that was here. And Keith, tell Darrell, the two times that we've had Ishmael on the show, we brought him to tears, especially that one time that we had him, on the show. and we brought Ishmael to tears, And Keith, remember that time we were in the studio and we were talking, and Ishmael just broke down and started crying because he looked at you and I as being the legacy that he respected, and he wanted to go and recognize, just as you're saying, Daryl. And I tell you, as I'm saying to you, as I said to Ms. Willis earlier, this is heartfelt.
Yeah.
And it's heart's work. Same thing you do when you go out and you speak to the multitudes of people to talk to them through a deterrent program.
Yes.
The same thing that you do when you want to make certain that there is equity when it comes down to policing, when you want to make certain that everybody gets their opportunity to see justice.
Yes, sir.
And Keith, as you've done so many times with all the things that you've done with Flip the Script, you see the legacy that you are leaving in the hands of Daryl Woods. And Keith, is there something that you'd like to just share to Daryl that you've done that you'd like to make sure that Daryl does the same thing and then transcends that to others, and it keeps being the gift that keeps giving and giving and giving? Keith?
Well, the one thing I'd like to say about my brother, and it was always my honor to go inside. That's not where I wanted to meet and talk to Daryl at, and we often talked about that, but it was always an honor. He know that I would never rush him. They would have to put me out of there after I got in there. And the one thing that Daryl has done, I don't have to tell Daryl what to do. Daryl was astute at kind of siphoning from us. He used to have this saying, I'm locked. I'm not locked. What did you used to say, Dale? I'm locked in but not locked out?
Locked up but not locked out.
Yeah. So Daryl, when people went inside, he grabbed as much as he could get from you where he could feed it to the people in there, but it also was keeping him in touch with the community. So he was one of the few that really had a presence in the community while he was locked up. And so when he came out, he just continued that work. And so what I impose on the guys all the time is tell them, don't waste a second when you get out.
I'm on the radio.
Don't waste a second of your time when you get out. You have no time for foolishness. You have no time. Your community is counting on you to come back and do what you were actually born to do before you went inside. And so Daryl has done that and more. To me, Daryl is let me share this with you. So Daryl's parole hearing was the largest parole hearing, at least at that time, than any ever in the state of Michigan. So we go up there to hear his case to getting parole. And I mean, you had people, it was jam-packed, not with just black folk, but as many white folk as black folk, not just with men, but with women. Then there was a busload or two outside that could not come in, that was sitting there upset and mad because they closed the door. So I'm sitting around my friends. That's how Daryl brought us all together. So in that parole hearing was Judge Bruce Morrow. We're sitting side by side. That's my comrade. And I'm saying this is the day. My brother is getting out. And Judge Morrow saw how geeked I was and excited. He put his hand on my knee. He said, I need you to stay calm. He said, because this is not going to work out right. And I looked at him and I said, you crazy. The work Daryl Woods has done, not just in this state, across the country, these people here. And so they presented a great case. And when they said that they weren't going to release him, I got ready to jump up, and Bruce Miles held me down and said, shut up. He said, this is all going to work out in God. And when he said that, I remembered that Daryl's faith in God was so strong that they could not keep him in. And he was released soon after. Now, here's the other part of that story. One day he walked in my office, and he had been released, what, about an hour earlier, Daryl?
Yes, sir.
With his son. And his son asked me, Daryl Jr., where you want to go, Pops? He said, take me to Flip the Script. What an honor that was, Darwin, for him to want to come see me. And Bishop Chewy was there too, who had been inside. He was responsible for me and Bishop Chewy knowing each other. And we just sat there and grinned, and we hugged, and we smiled. Daryl brings that kind of feeling when he walks in the room. Well, Detroit is blessed to have Daryl Woods. I'm not saying that because he's on the radio. I've said that in rooms when he's not around. That's just the way I feel. And so I am honored to be on the radio with him today. He doesn't need instructions. He gets his instructions from up high, higher places than he's been. And so thank you for the opportunity to share in this.
Well, you know, this is, Keith, the kind of way to kind of give, like I said, recognition to people that can truly receive it.
Amen.
Because we are totally blessed to have people like you, Keith, like Daryl, and so many others that are continuing to fight the fight.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, and we're praying that people like you, Keith, you know, with your legacy and living that life and having like your son, your granddaughter, getting an opportunity to see the OG,
Yeah.
you know, to see the legend. And Keith, you know, as you know, you've had some health challenges too,
Yeah.
but God saw fit to keep you here on this earth as an earthly angel to so many others. And you are continuing to be the legacy to so many young men that might not have that opportunity to have a father like Daryl Woods provides to his son, like a father that you provide to your son, Keith. I wasn't fortunate to have a son, but I've got a daughter. But the thing is that you and Daryl and so many others have sons that are able to go and emulate their fathers, and then also be able to go and have their character traits emanate in their offspring. And that's key with everyone. You know, I'm thinking about Ishmael Terry, who you know, has got a grandchild. I believe it's a son. I think it's a grandson that's going to be coming into this world, and he is so happy, you know, because of that. And I'm trying to see if we can patch him in too. Ishmael, are you on the line with us? Ishmael?
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
Okay, but you can
I'm
hear
on the
us?
road.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna call y'all right back.
Okay. All right. But
All right.
Keith, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
You know, and that's the thing that we're so happy that people are doing that. But I want to give Daryl an opportunity. You know, we're waiting for Ishmael to call back in. But Daryl, I want you to kind of go and give some of your reflections, not just in terms of say about what you do as a police commissioner with all the people that you touch, but also your reflections too. You know, when I saw you at Mayor Yap's, you know, homegoing the
Yes.
other day, sometimes we don't know how people are connected. Keith, you know, we had this conversation. I didn't know how you were connected, you know, with Yap. And just like Daryl, I didn't know how Daryl was connected with Yap. I knew how, like, we saw one of our other black brickmasters, Bert Johnson,
For sure.
you know, and we knew how Bert was connected with the city of Highland Park. But I just want to hear from you, Daryl, how were you connected in terms of, say, with Yap as well as with the city of Highland Park?
Well, I live on blocks away from this station on Beresford. I grew up there as a little small child. Went to Thompson Elementary School here at Highland Park. And so my family are original Highland Parkers, Polar Bears for life. And Mayor Yap served on on the Highland Park Police Department for a number of years. Some of those years, I used to run from him.
Did he ever catch you? Or
No, he was hard for him to catch me. He was like,
okay.
I'm going to get you. But he was just inspirational. He loved the children. He was very, very encouraging. I remember going to Frank Party Store on the block, on the corner of the block we stayed on, a Jewish party store, and Yopnum used to be in that neighborhood, just loving on the children. He was very close with my family, and then when I went in, and of course I knew his members of his family as well. When I got out of prison, I had the honor to connect back up with him through Art Blackwell. Art Blackwell used to come in all the time, mentored us, and poured into us. I also, used to have DeAndre Wyndham come in as well, to be able to be a blessing to the men inside the prison. And so Yop was running for re-election, and they asked me to help the campaign. And that's what I did. I came out here in Highland Park in my old stomping grounds and hit the beat for him, and we was able to help him win that his re-election. And it was a very, very powerful moment. It was a very good moment to be able to come help the man I used to run from.
Now you're running with him.
Now I'm running with him,
or running towards him.
Running towards him, man. And it was just a true blessing, because I know that he had a beautiful heart and his soul was right. And he cared about people. He cared about Highland Park. And that's why he fought for in that very last election. He said, this is going to be my last campaign. But he wanted to give Highland Park his all. And he did just do that. He was able to serve with distinction and honor and integrity. He loved this city through and through. He was a polar bear through and through. And he was a police. He was a true cop. And he believed in policing, and he was highly decorated. I think he went through the FBI training school and all of that type of stuff. And he told me all the stories, and my family told me all the stories, and I was just deeply inspired by him. And so it was a pleasure for me to come back to the city that I was raised up in as a little child, and my family stayed in for years and years. To come back to the city and help it by helping choose an honorable leader like Mayor Hubert Yop.
Ishmael, are you with us?
I'm barely. It's not a big, strong signal, big bro.
Okay.
But I'm here.
Well, we can hear you loud and clear, but I just wanted, if you can hear me, I just wanted you to kind of give your reflections too about Mayor Yop and the impression that he made on you, just like with myself and Daryl and Keith are talking.
About 15, 16 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting him during my time up from city, when I was working with the city mayor, Kilpatrick, to city council, and then up in Lansing. And I had the blessings of learning a lot of interesting tools in the toolkit on being a legislator, and how it is to be a community activist. He always was upright with me. He wasn't never trying to pull my coattail and trying to give me false information. He was always generally there for me, anytime and every time. He used to get upset with me because he said he mad at me because I didn't live in Highland Park. So I got the utmost respect for him. It's a sad day, a sad moment in life when losing a great pioneer like Yop. And hopefully Wood and the rest of the people that live in Highland Park can even measure up to some of the things that he's done over his decades of life.
Well, and that's something too that, as we reflect back, a little bit more on, Mayor Yop. There's so many people that have stories, just as Daryl was saying, just as Keith was saying, as I was saying, that Yop has really touched people. And Ishmael, you do the same things as what Daryl is doing, what Keith is doing, what I try and do. And you as a young man, what would you say just to Daryl Woods to kind of let him know how proud you are of the things that Daryl is doing in the community, and also the same things that what Keith is doing? I think we got to take a break in a minute. So let's take a break first, and then once we take this break, then we'll come back. We are plumb pleased to have Commissioner Daryl Woods, All for One CEO Ishmael Terry, and the OG Keith Bennett. I guess it would have to take Commissioner Woods to tell and say that again. How did the OG Keith Bennett? So we'll be right back following this station break. Okay, we are back, and we are joined in the studio by Commissioner Daryl Woods. We are joined on the phone by the young man who is the CEO of All for One, and that is Ishmael Terry. And we are also joined by the OG, the legend, Mr. Keith Bennett, who celebrated his 70th trip around the sun yesterday with a variety of family and friends. So again, today we just wanted to take an opportunity to go and, number one, as our general manager, Maxine Willis, wanted to thank Commissioner Woods, because we know the fires that he has to put out in his role as police commissioner. And just want to, before we, and today our conversation we wanted to reflect on was the opportunity for us to celebrate the life of the Honorable Mayor of Highland Park, Hubert Yap. But before we, kind of delve back into, celebrating his life, just want to ask you, Daryl, you've done so much in the city of Highland Park, in the city of Detroit. What are some of the things, and I'm going to ask Ishmael and Keith the same thing, what are some of the things that you've done that mean most to you, that you are most proud of, that you'd like to go and reflect that to your grandsons or granddaughters, but the legacies that you have, here?
Well, pouring into the life of our young people is vitally important to me. Those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. And so we try to pour into our young people and mentor them and wrap our arms around them and to love on them. And so, I've been in programs with young people where we was able to bring law enforcement and community together with them in a different type of way. And so it's been my honor to every time I have an opportunity to love on a young person, to encourage them, to mentor them, to empower them with the tools that they need to win. It's always been refreshing for me. Because I want to make sure that they don't go down the steps that or down the path I went. And so it's important to me also that we get our people out to vote, because we living in a day and age where the voter apathy is terrible. And I think that people don't understand the power of it. Just like working with Mayor Yap, working on the Michigan Supreme Court, and right now with the Michigan Supreme Court, we have a 5-2 majority, soon to have a 6-1 majority on the Michigan Supreme Court, in which we have been able to be blessed to see a lot of reform happen in the Michigan Supreme Court. And so that's. Those are two of the things that's important to me, and family is vitally important to me. Since I've been out, I've been able to love on my children, my grandchildren, spend quality time with them, go pick them up from school, to take them to school, sit down with them, taking them to church with me, and praying with them and loving on them. Something I have the opportunity to do with my children when they were small. And so all that is vitally important. I'm in the juveniles now under the program called Credible Messengers, wrapping our arms around them, bringing life-saving programming in there and making sure that we have programming not just for them, but also for their families, and to be able to lift them up and to encourage them so that they would not graduate to prison. And so those things I've been doing. And police commissioner, it's a great noble profession if it's done right, without ego, understanding that it's a service for the citizens of the city of Detroit. It's not a service for Darrell Woods. It's not a service for any political entity, but it's a service for the citizens of the city of Detroit to make sure that they are getting constitutional policing in their city in which they deserve. And so that's what we advocate for, that's what we fight for, and that's what we push for. And as the chairman of the board, I try to lead with honor and distinction and with integrity, and without any type of corruption whatsoever, to show that this can be done correctly in a dignified manner. And I'm happy to say, since I've been there, we've been able to bring down the tone a lot. We're not perfect, but we're striving for it, and we're working hard for it for the citizens of the city of Detroit. We've been able to reduce the backlog significantly. We've been able to do some other things. We put up a dashboard. The first time ever we put a dashboard up, and you can pull that dashboard out. It's a living dashboard to show and track citizen complaints and show the work that we're doing. The first time ever been done has been done at my direction and my leadership. And so I'm very, very happy. We chose the new police chief. We did interviews for the police chief for the city of Detroit, and we was able to vet out 3 candidates, and knowing that Todd Bettison was the candidate of choice for everyone on that board, and for the city council, and even for the mayor. So we was happy to be able to go through that process, to be able to do that in an honorable way, in a dignified way, in a respectful way, man. So it's so many things. I'm going back into a prison at the end of this month. Had the opportunity to go back into the Macomb Correctional Facility to be able to engage with them there. Been able to fight for so many people, and was able to see a number of people get free because of my advocacy and the work that I've been able to put in since I've been out. And just joining forces with Keith Bennett. He had me over at Flip the Script numerous times to speak to the men. I even took a busload of the men from Flip the Script to go vote one time. And so I'm having fun out here, being a part of the NAACP. I'm the top ticket seller for the Freedom Fund dinner.
Is that right?
For 2 years straight, and I plan to be the top ticket seller this year. So if you need a table, hit a brother up, because
give your contact information. We're gonna help you to make sure that you're gonna be the top ticket seller for this one too.
Absolutely, it's 313-949-7141. 313-949-7141. If you want to go, this is the set. Keith, you got to be there. I'm gonna get you a ticket. I'm gonna get you a real good ticket, Keith, because this is the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Fund dinner this year. And so you have to be at the Freedom Fund dinner this year, man.
All right. Okay.
And that's the thing that really right now everybody's really gearing up, and give that date when the Freedom Fund dinner is.
It's June 29th, 2025. All roads leads to Huntington Place. Reverend Wendell Anthony has done a powerful job. Him and Camilla Landrum, the executive director, and that whole team over there. And ain't nobody playing this year. We don't have time for any games. We ain't got time for any games. We have to be conscientious of what we're doing in 2025, because we still alive in 2025, and we ain't taking no jive.
And Commissioner Darrell Wood said so.
That's right.
But the thing is, Keith, Ishmael, you can chime in as well on this part, is that there's so much that needs to be done, especially trying to encourage our young black men to get out and vote. And Ishmael, Keith, I know we've talked about this on the show before. Daryl, I know this is your first time coming on Truth to Power, but we definitely want to have you back on, and one of the things that you just made me think about, and you can use that Arnold Schwarzenegger. But, the thing is that we want you and possibly Ms. Landrum or Dr. Wendell Anthony to come and talk about the upcoming dinner.
Absolutely.
So we can help to promote the Freedom Fund dinner, because we know how important it is, especially with trying to make certain that the messaging gets out. So now I'm going to ask you for a scoop. You might not be able to give it to me yet, but have they decided?
No speaker. Don't ask me who the speaker is.
Okay. Because I was going to ask that. Because I every time we turn around, it's like getting close to that time. So we got, 2 months?
Yes.
But it's like
it's going to be an unveiling. And
Okay.
they always make that a moment to unveil who the speakers are and the honorees are. And so I'll make sure that they get you on that list.
I appreciate that.
And give you guys an exclusive access to that part of things, because it always is a beautiful event.
Well, let me throw this out. I'm going to throw this last little something out about the dinner real quick. Is there anybody in particular that you would like to see showcased as the keynote this year? I mean, that's not to say that that's who you're looking at, but who's a person that Daryl Woods would love to see on that dais with Wendell Anthony and Camilla Landrum and others? Who would you like to see up there?
I would like to see a unifier of our people, someone who would speak truth to power, a strong voice. It's hard for me to say who that one person may be. I've been loving Jasmine Crockett.
I kind of had a feeling that was going to be somebody that you might have thought about.
Yeah, she's been amazing, and she has been encouraging us. There's so many folks out there, though, that you can look at. I love what Cory Booker did the other
With
day.
his marathon speech.
That marathon speech, man, and standing up for the people, man. We have to resist the evil. It says, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And so this is a spiritual moment for us. We know what it feels like to be discriminated against. We know what it feels like to see hatred come towards us. But Dr. King said, never let a man pull you so low as to hate them. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be resilient in this moment and don't allow the evil of this day to taint us. But we got to keep on keeping on and fight the good fight.
And, Keith, that makes me think back to your, when you guest hosted the show for me last week, and you talked about the spiritual warfare that everybody is going through. You want to speak on that, Keith?
Yeah, I brought in Pastor Henry McClinton and Dr. Portia Lockett. Both of them are great people in my life.
Great ones.
And the specialist in talking about how faith intersects with our behavior and how different spirits are collapsing right now. And so spiritual warfare is something I have focused in on the last 5 or 6 years, even generational spiritual warfare. A lot of people are behaving and fighting and in conflict as soon as they wake up. And they don't understand what's going on, what's being put on the airwaves, through social media, what's been put out there in front of them. And they're seeking revenge. And the Bible teaches us about not seeking revenge. The Bible teaches about what you put out is what you receive. And so we have to get our community, as Daryl said, in line with sound doctrine. And that comes from biblical. And if you are a Muslim, then that comes from the Quran. But we cannot act out of flesh and reaction and anger, because that's the war that the demonic spirits want us entrenched in. And as long as we're entrenched in fighting them, we're in trouble. And so we got to take ours to a whole different level. So we dove in deep on that. We even talked about there's a spiritual warfare going on between black men and black women.
Yeah.
It's treacherous how we're judging each other, how we're treating each other. We talked about spiritual warfare against the church, which is ridiculous now. How you going to fight a building? How you going to fight one person in the building? And so we talked about all these different spirits that we are inhabiting because we're not going and getting on our knees. We're not asking for the God that we should be serving, and those who don't serve, you need to look to him to clear some of these things up and get in the right spiritual mind. So I was happy to hear Daryl say that, because that's what it's going to take for us to defeat what's going on now. And so that's what I focus on every day. Daryl was over at Flip yesterday, and I spoke on that, and the guys was really shocked. And I'll be back over there next week on spiritually, what are you allowing to possess you? What are you doing with your spirit? And so that's where we at. I'm hoping that Dr. Lockett will come on with you, Darwin, and further that discussion. She talked about grief in the spiritual realm, because it doesn't mean we lost somebody through death. It could be a divorce. It could be a job. It could be the fact that we're losing our foothold here in America now. That's a spiritual warfare, you know. And so we know what's going on in Washington. It's not physical because they can't touch us physically, but they are trying to touch us spiritually.
This call will be recorded.
Well, you know, and that's something too that Daryl, Ishmael, Keith, you know, when we look at the relationships between each other, especially with black men,
Yeah.
that's right there, because when you're seeing black men, and Daryl, you can attest to this, and I'm sure Ishmael and Keith can do as well, it pains me when I look and see people having shootouts
Yeah.
in the neighborhoods. And the sad part about it is these are families.
Yeah.
These are brothers shooting brothers. These are sisters shooting brothers. These are, sadly enough, these are daughters committing violent acts against mothers. I mean, I was looking at something, you know, on Facebook the other day when I saw about some young women got mad at their mother because she took Wi-Fi away from them, and they retaliated against, you know. And what I would want to do too is gentlemen, I want you to come back on the show again.
Yes.
I know we're doing, you know, we're kind of, you know, talking about Mayor Yap, but then at the same time too, there's some other things that we know we need to do, because I know, just like when I think about Mayor Yap, I know he want us to have these kind of conversations.
For sure.
He want us to talk about what we need to do. Now, he's ascended into the heavens with the ancestors.
Yeah.
But we still are here on this earth. And what would it be that we would know that Yap would want the work to continue in the Daryl Woods, in the Ishmael Terrys, in the Keith Bennetts, and others? So that's the thing that we, as you said before, Keith, about the spiritual warfare, we've still got work to do. And we can't be complacent. We can't sit back and hope that somebody else is going to do it. You mentioned about Cory Booker and how he gave his powerful speech. And the thing that people don't really realize is that we have to educate people, because knowledge is something that we want to share, not keep. And a lot of people didn't understand the historical value of him giving that speech.
Absolutely.
And why that speech was important, and whose record he broke giving that speech. Gentlemen, are y'all familiar with who he and what he did with his record and who he broke the record of?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the record he broke.
Keith, are you familiar with the record he broke? Ishmael?
No, I'm not.
He broke the record.
For the
It was
for the
on the
speech.
filibuster, right?
Yeah, it was a filibuster.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, it was the longest filibuster since Grover Cleveland, as they stated. It was basically newsworthy. It was an opportunity to be able to right the wrong for a lot of things that's coming down with the executive orders. But we'll see how that plays out this week, because we know that the tariffs are taking place, and there's a lot of other continents and other countries are now starting to reduce down their tariffs because of all of this filibusters and executive orders. So we'll see how this all play out this year.
Well, see, one thing too, gentlemen, was that what he did was that he broke the current record that Strom Thurmond.
I thought it was Strom Thurmond too.
Right.
And when Strom Thurmond was talking about civil rights,
Yeah.
and that's the record that he broke because he wanted to make certain that people understood, about he was a segregationalist.
For sure.
And they wanted to make certain that they understood about what he did when he spoke against, and talked about forced segregation. And that's one of the things that Cory Booker wanted to make certain that record that Strom Thurmond had in the history books was broken.
Yeah.
So that now he can go and see. That's the other thing too. Where are our leaders coming from?
Yeah.
And Daryl, Ishmael, Keith, we lost the great leader in Mayor Yap. But we've got to look at who now then are the leaders that the seeds are being sowed into to be the next Mayor Yaps,
Yeah.
the next Martin Luther King Jr.'s, and so many other ancestors that have transcended, and looking at the legacy that they live and they've led. And just like Daryl, with the Freedom Fund dinner, we celebrated a couple of years ago, because I know I was on the dais with the dinner a couple of years ago.
For sure.
And it was like celebrating the March on Freedom and Jobs.
That's right.
And that's something that we need to really kind of look into, what needs to be. And it's like you're talking about the theme for the dinner this year. Where, and the one thing I was so happy when I looked and I saw passing of the gavel.
Yeah.
And I wasn't invited this year to come to the passing. Maybe next year, Doc. Maybe I'll
sir.
have to put a good word in with
put a
Commissioner
good word
Woods
in.
to be able
Yeah.
to do that. But I know I was at one of the previous passing of the gavels. And the thing is that when I looked and I saw Keith, you can attest to this, because we had talked to him about the building Black Brickmasters, and that was Tony Stovall.
Yeah.
So Keith, he's going to be one of the co-chairs, if I'm not
For sure,
mistaken,
for sure.
for the dinner. And I know
this
Keith,
year.
you and I have talked about, Tony Stovall of Hot Sam's.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my brother. Yeah.
So, he's a good brother that, we know that this dinner is going to be in some great hands. And who's his partner? I don't want to be remiss
I
and
forget
not.
his partner name, but both of him and his partner, they came up. They spoke very, very strong, and they 1,000% behind this. They're to the point where they want to be out selling tickets as well.
I'm not getting a good reception now.
Can you still hear us?
I'm getting a lot of static. I can barely hear you. So if you ask me something, I may have missed it because the last thing I heard you say was Tony Stovall.
Yeah,
and
just
he would be a part on the dais for the Freedom Fund dinner.
Right. That's what we were just saying, Keith, was that
Okay.
Tony Stovall is going to be one of the co-chairs,
Him and his partner.
him and his partner.
Great.
And then I know, Keith, how you and I, we've talked with other brickmasters about possibly, talking to Tony Stovall, and Tony Stovall wants to support us in some of the
Yeah.
initiatives that we're doing.
Yes, and he spoke eloquently last night, not only honoring me, but he talked about the fact that the work that we and others were doing with young black men in the community and not being so judgmental and worrying about the sagging pants and all that. He said, but he learned to start giving them pants. He said he just started buying pants and giving them to them.
Yeah.
So the things that that he's talking about, and I'm glad to see him on the dais, he's been doing for years. And we just have some great leaders in our community, but a lot of us are aging out. That don't mean we're ready to sit down or need to sit down, or we're not still beneficial or still worthy of our time, but we need to make sure, and that's part of Daryl's job, because I know he spends time, I think, in the youth detention center and start grooming. I mean, he's a story in itself. There's nowhere in the world, Daryl knows this, that 30 years ago, even 10 years ago, people would have thought he would be what he is now. That's an amazing story. So we have some amazing people in our community and our culture that are not being recognized. When I hear you talk about leadership, the leaders are here. We just need to recognize their talent the young man that succeeded me at Flip the Script,
Oh yeah.
said last night. He said, Mr. Bennett said years ago, you could replace not only me, but my boss. And he's going to replace my former boss next week. We have
Huge.
leadership here. We just need to slide over, groom them, mentor them, navigate them, pray for them some more, and pray for them, and hold them accountable. And I heard Daryl say that about the police commission. We got to start holding each other accountable for doing. We don't have time to slip up. We don't have time. We can make errors, but we don't have time to make errors in really crucial situations anymore.
Well, you know, Keith, and you just made me think back to something that Daryl was saying earlier, how one of the things that Daryl and I did in Highland Park with a group of young women. And we got to take a break, but Daryl, I want you to tell that story about what we did with those young women when we had all those plainclothes law enforcement
I can't
people
hear.
Yeah.
that was there. So Daryl is gonna, stay with us. Keith, Ishmael, we'll be right back if you can hear us. So stay tuned. We'll be right back
Yeah,
with Truth to
somewhat.
Power.
I can.
Okay? And we are back with our special guest today. We are back with Police Commissioner Daryl Woods, and also with the OG, formerly with Flip the Script, and that is Mr. Keith Bennett. But just want to give you both gentlemen an opportunity just to kind of give a final reflection on Mayor Yap, and what do you think his legacy is that he's left upon you and left upon the community? And I'll start with you, Keith, and let you do that, and then I'll go to Commissioner Woods.
You know, you have a page on social media called The Measure of a Man, Darwin. And a lot of times when I measure men, it's by the challenges they accept. And that's why I refer to Daryl, the challenges that he accepts on the inside and now on the outside. Highland Park has been suffering. I remember when Highland Park was one of the top 10 cleanest cities in the country. He didn't inherit that. He didn't inherit that city. And so the challenges that he inherited and took them on with strength, with integrity, and with power, just shows you what kind of man he is. And for people to remember him, because he didn't put up skyscrapers and things of that nature, but he built and he built and he built. He used what he had, and in that he still kept things going. And so I look at him as a guy who accepted accountability for tremendous challenges, faced them head on with integrity, and partnered and made friends with all walks of life. And he represented Highland Park like no other really has. And so that's my feelings and my memory of Mayor Yap.
I would say that he gave his all to the city that he loved. Just look at Oakland Avenue. All the things, the innovation that is taking place on Oakland Avenue. That's Mayor Yap. He was leading while bleeding. This city was going through a lot, but the pensions are fully paid for. And so he leave a legacy of service. This man served in the military. He loved his children. He loved his family. He loved his city, and he gave his all for this city. And even when his body didn't feel the best, he sacrificed to serve for his city. So a legend in Highland Park, a legend in this country, and I deeply appreciate all that he has left behind for us. When you have a fully paid pension, Detroit don't even have that. And you have to give him his flowers for that. So definitely He would be deeply missed. He was loved. I think about Alexis Ramsey, a person who was his Olivia Pope, and probably your Olivia Pope too, and
Because I mentioned that she was the first person I mentioned when we started the show with myself and Ms. Willis. When you think about Highland Park, you think about the Alexis Ramseys, the Honorable Alexis Ramsey,
Yes.
who was the president of the school board
Yeah.
in Highland Park for many years.
Yeah, and for him and Blackwell, Art Blackwell, to come, the Honorable Art Blackwell, to come together to say, hey, we come together to fight for this city, and for me to be in the mix of that with Alexis and others, it was an honor of my life, and definitely he leaves a powerful legacy. Again, look at Oakland Avenue. You like, wow. You can see the difference.
Absolutely.
You can feel the difference. And you can. It's going to be built upon with good leadership, And so we expect folks to build upon that and not tear it down.
Right. And that's the thing, gentlemen, because I think about looking at Highland Park, because I grew up on the outskirts of Highland Park. I grew up in Detroit. I'm a Linwood Avenue product.
Oh Lord.
But the thing is that when I was there and I would go, my mother would take us to Sears
Yeah.
in Highland Park.
Yeah.
And we loved to take that. My brother and I used to love to take that little tunnel going
Absolutely.
underneath to get into the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then going to the dime stores, we called it.
Yep.
We don't even have dime stores no more now. But, and then I think back to, Keith, you were talking about, partying and going to the clubs. And I think about dairy workers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And we talk about legacy. That's probably before your time, Daryl. But
well, I know all about it.
And it's
then
like
Saunders Bakery too.
it's Saunders Bakery. And getting some of that bumpy cake.
Right.
And then thinking in terms of say,
popcorn from Sears wasn't hurting too bad either.
sure wasn't, Keith. I mean, but and then everybody used to go, because we used to go to the Red Barn. It was right there on the corner of Davison and Woodward.
Yeah.
And
Let's not go to Wonder Bread now.
then going up there to Wonder Bread. Right.
And get the day old Wonder Bread.
There you go. There you go. You talking that talk now. And then go get some of that Focus Hope cheese too.
Yeah.
Get that big block of
Folks don't
cheese from
understand.
Focus Hope.
Yeah.
I tell young folks that Highland Park used to have public restrooms underground.
Wow.
They think I'm lying. Clean public restaurant rooms underground that you walk down. That's what was there. That city is a jewel. They just don't know. It's a historic jewel, and he caretakered it. Yeah.
And you know something too, gentlemen, that was interesting for me. I was riding down 2nd Avenue up there near Buena Vista, right up in there. And here, going from Buena Vista on up to 6 Mile.
Yeah.
And right there about at Puritan, there's a structure on the corner, and it looked like a little brick house or like a cement house. And I was wondering, what is this? And I talked to Yop about that, and Mayor Yop told me, Darwin, that's the tunnel that leads under the street to the other side of the street.
Wow.
So that the school kids didn't have to cross the street and be in risk of getting hit by a car.
Wow.
They could go underground and go to the other side of 2nd Avenue. And I'm like, wow, I never knew that, before. And I would see this structure all the time when I would ride down the street. And I asked you, Daryl, Keith, just ride down 2nd Avenue from 6 Mile on down to like Sears Street. And you'll see there's 2 of these structures right there. And then the other thing was, it pained me too, because he was able, Mayor Yop was able to get him through the emergency management.
For sure.
When it came through. And then also looking at him being a police chief was able to get them through when they did not have a police department.
That's right.
And had to depend on the Wayne County sheriffs to police the residents of Highland Park. So, I mean, there's been so many different things that he's gotten the city through. And I think about the good times, but then I also think about some of the other times, in the city. But, hopefully under the regime of Mayor Glenda McDonald and then others that may come, after her, we're hoping and praying that Highland Park can flourish and be back to the Highland Park as you knew it, Daryl, as you knew it, Keith, as Ishmael knew it, and as I knew it. Because I used to love, like I said, right there, Manchester, Woodward, that was the hub right there. And I mean, you had different hubs, like when you think about Detroit, you think about that hub that used to be right there at Grand River and Greenfield.
Yeah.
You think about that hub right there at Oakman and
Or
Grand River.
Grand River, West Grand, Grand River and Dexter.
Grand River and Dexter, right. And I mean, and then you think about the shows that existed. But one of the things that I think about too is I think about Highland Appliance,
wow.
right there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got so many different things that we look at. And then even the schools, and it's sad that the schools have had to shut down.
Yeah.
Well, they had a college at one time too. Highland Park
Community College. Absolutely.
Right there on, what was it, Glendale Street?
Yep. Glenn Donahue. Well, I'm a basketball man. Was the coach there for a number of years. Yeah.
And see, that's the other thing too. When you talk about Highland Park for Life,
Yeah. General Hospital.
the hospital,
Right on Woodward.
exactly.
Yep.
So there was so many different things that were the legacy. Back even when Blackwell was the mayor,
For sure.
and Robert Blackwell was another
For sure.
pioneer
No
in the
doubt.
city
Yes,
of
he
Highland
was.
Park.
Yeah.
Giant.
Yes, and I mean, I think about June Blackwell. I think
Yeah.
about Art Blackwell, and Blackwell is a name that carries a lot of legacy
Absolutely.
in Highland Park. But the question I wanted to ask you too, because it's like for me, Highland Park was just the jewel within Detroit, and it was landlocked by Detroit. But we just knew when you go to Highland Park, we knew make sure you take some money. Because we knew you were going to be shopping. We knew you were going to go to Sears. You were going to go to the dime store. You was going to go up there and get some hamburgers up there at the Red Barn. And all of those shops all along Woodward Avenue, from Davison all the way up to Sears. But then even south of, because I remember the, the Howard Johnson.
Yeah.
And I know I'm probably
Howard Johnson.
still
Yeah.
talking before your time a little bit,
Lord.
Daryl. But that right there
Right.
with the Howard Johnson,
There was a man to a boy hanging out, looking at seeing what the grown folks was.
Right. That's right. You absolutely right about it.
and it was so funny because I was I used to sing a little bit in the day, and there was a gentleman named Donald Vale.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Donald
Grew
Vale.
up in Greater Grace Temple.
Yes,
Absolutely.
And they were having their having some auditions for people to join the Donald Vale and the Corliers.
Yep.
And that was one of the things that we did the auditions, and the auditions took place right there at the Howard Johnson.
Absolutely.
And, and then you think in terms of say about that legacy, right there, all up along through those streets that had those names of states, California,
Yeah.
Colorado,
Tennessee.
and all through there, Tennessee, and all up through that area. So, I mean, it was there, and that was something else right there. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Commissioner Daryl Woods, Keith Bennett. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we'll be right back. And you are watching a special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and today we have been giving the viewers an opportunity to hear some of the reflections about the Honorable Mayor of Highland Park, Michigan, Hubert Yap. And we are joined on the set here with Police Commissioner Daryl Woods, and we are also joined by the President of Watkins Broadcasting, and the president here at WHPR, Mr. R.J. Watkins.
Thank you. Hello.
The legend.
And I'm going to give, since he introduced Keith being the OG, now he's introducing the legend. So I'm going to let you give just your reflections first on the legend, R.J. Watkins, and then we'll get some reflections from R.J. Watkins about the Honorable Mayor Hubert Yap.
Such a legendary man, one who have brought a lot of love to the city of Detroit, to Holland Park, and throughout the state of Michigan, this country for that matter. Someone who has inspired so many people, thousands and thousands, probably maybe millions of people that has been inspired by this legend. And it's an absolute honor to be in his studio and to be able to talk to this legend and be next to this legend as he would give reflection of the legend of Hubert Yap, the Honorable Hubert Yap. But we thank you for allowing this space to happen. The Honorable, legendary R.J. Watkins.
I'm out of words. I'm out of words. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You know, Yap was a very special guy to me. He appointed me to Police and Fire Commission.
Wow.
And as you know, that's a very important position.
Very
important position. And he would call the office sometimes, and we created a show for the city with Yap, and we still have the show going for the coming mayor. And I was impressed. I seen people do honor guard at a funeral. That's not the first time I saw that. But when I saw them do it for Yap, I understood more. That's the highest, one of the highest accomplishment you can get.
That's right.
When they fold that flag, I thought, wow. The key to the city is nice. Proclamations from the mayor and governor and city council is nice. But when they fold that flag,
Yes, sir.
you don't get no higher than that.
No higher.
I wanted to show a clip. It's not ready. We taped it, and it really brought chills to me. And listen to his daughter was great because she was saying bye to her dad. And I guess when we go to funerals, we think about that's the seat in the house that we all have to go to. That's a premier seat that we will visit. That's the premier seat we will say goodbye. And even though it's sad, and I think about my daughter, and listening to his daughter, my daughters, my children. But it's a route we have to take one day.
Absolutely.
Even though I say I'm not going to take it.
You're going to be raptured.
Yeah. Mama used to tell me, I was a little boy, she would say, "Oh, but baby, you're going to die one day." I said, "Oh, Mama, I ain't going to." I said, "Mama, didn't you say that God going to come one day?"
Right.
I said, "Didn't you say God was going to come one day?" "Well, I believe I'm going to be living when God comes, and he's going to take me on up."
That's right.
She said, "But you got to die first before you go up." So that's a big thing that me and my mama had. God rest her. I mean, she's still here. She's just had a stroke last night, and I'm praying for her.
Amen.
But Yap was a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Talked about Oakland Avenue. Looking at what's going on over there, you know, that's the build up over there. You can feel the excitement on Oakland Avenue.
You talked about, I think, Wonder Bread.
Yeah.
It was on Hamilton, was it?
Right there, Hamilton and 12th.
Yes.
Yeah. There was a lot of great. Highland Park is a great city.
Yeah.
It has a lot of history. It has so much history, it would shock you. if you know some of the history, I'll say a little bit, especially about the. I'm not gonna go deep into it, but especially about the Wi-Fi.
That's huge.
It's some things happening in Highland Park would blow your mind, but it's a great city.
What made you, RJ, want to go into Highland Park and establish WHPR?
Well, Lindsey Porter, he came to my office on 7 Mile and Telegraph. Mr. Keys had invested a lot of money and bought me a studio. He bought me a state-of-the-art studio. I had everything but a license to be a station, but I was at a studio. And Lindsey Porter, and we had to move because they were buying that whole corner, and Mr. Keys owned half of it, but he had leased it to me. No, he had sold it to me. And I returned it back to him. But anyway, Mayor Lindsey Porter came over there and he said, I want you to come to my city. And Cornelius Watts wanted me to move to Detroit. He said, I can get you in Detroit and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We'll find a city with Dave Bean and da-da-da. And Mayor Lindsey Porter said he just wanted me to come, and I liked the energy he had.
Yeah. Beautiful guy too.
So I said, well, I could go to Detroit and get lost, or I can go to Highland Park and be equal. Not that I couldn't be equal in Detroit, but so much politics at that. Oh my goodness.
That would be another whole show.
Another show.
When I got the key to the city, at that time, Mayor Young was the mayor. They said, I never did this on TV. I don't think. They said the only way, I had a PR company working with me. They said the only way they'd give me the key to the city if I left the city. What do you do when the city council feel like that about you? So we were doing Detroit Go National. We were going live, coast to coast, a live TV broadcast. We had hooked up at the States Theater, and I said, "What am I gonna do?" The people dislike me. Some of the people, not all of them. I said, "Well, we kept on going. We kept on pressing on, and we got the key to the city anyway, without." City council signed on, but we got to the city anyway. So I'm glad I came to Highland Park. It's a great city. They help any kind of way they can help, and they want to see you make it. So if you have a business, I'm not telling you what to do, but check out Highland Park.
Well, Tim is telling us we need to wrap up, so I'm gonna ask you.
Well, Tim, we'll take 5 minutes. We'll go over.
Okay.
We'll go over just a little bit, Tim. We'll take apologize to Henry. We'll take 5, 10 minutes, 15, whatever you need.
Okay.
We'll go over just a little bit. I hope that works out. We might could edit something.
Okay. But I wanted you two to kind of give some final reflections on Mayor Yap, and the legacy. You just explained why you moved into Highland Park, but I want to give you an opportunity, RJ. What is the staying power? And then I also want Dear Woods to make certain that he lets people know when you come to Highland Park, don't miss coming to WHPR.
That's right.
Well, it's a fair city. You got to follow the rules now. You got to follow the rules and keep everything going. But all the mayors have been very fair to me. And what else can you ask for? You want a fair shot. If I don't know what I'm doing, show me what to do. Mm-hmm. Hold my hand. I'm 3. I'm 2.
There you go. There you
Exactly.
go.
just I'm not the smartest, sharpest knife in the thing, So, am I making that noise, Tim?
No, you good. Go ahead.
They help you. The mayor, every mayor that's sat in that seat has helped me the best that they can help me, and that's all you can ask for. Mayor Yap, he helped me in everything we done. Things get tight and this goes wrong and that goes wrong. They help you the best they can help you. All the mayors, especially Mayor Yap, he helped me. We're talking about Mayor Yap, but he helped me. He paid the way, and he was a good man.
What's the one word before we sign off, and I let Daryl give the last word? What's the one word that you would use to describe Mayor Yap?
Don't make him mad.
You're absolutely right.
You don't get mad much, but don't make him mad.
Right.
You'll see some things happen that might be a year later to you. Don't make him mad. But he's a forgiving man. He's all right. He's great. He's great.
So let me ask this last quick question, Daryl. Forgive me, I'm gonna ask RJ one last question. So, what would Mayor Yap be saying to RJ Watkins right now from heaven?
RJ, you all right? You can do it. Are you all right? RJ, are you all right? I'm all right, Mayor Yap. But I can use this.
There you go.
If you got it. By the way, I could.
Right.
Are you all right?
Okay.
Let me see.
Commissioner Woods.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell in terms of say like, this is your first time coming on the show with us today. Why would you want to come back?
I'm sitting in history. I'm sitting in black ownership. I'm sitting in black excellence, and not only just black excellence. I'm sitting in excellence. Period. Point blank. This is something that we need to all support. This is something that we all should be involved with. I'll be happy and honored to come back to this station, especially knowing that it's owned by a legendary hero in our country, not in the city of Highland Park, not in the city of Detroit, not in the state of Michigan, but in our country. All of the people that he have brought smiles to in their lives. I was incarcerated for 29 years, and to be able to turn on the TV and be able to be inspired, to be encouraged through edutainment, through entertainment, with black excellence. And so this is the place to be. This is the place to support. And so, I don't say that lightly. I really, really feel honored. Just going back, reflecting on my childhood, going back and bringing it up to even to this day, how inspired I've been by this honorable man. Everybody talk about the scene. Everybody talk about the new dance show. Malik Shabazz, Darwin Griffin, and all of the people that you have given a voice to when no one else would give them a voice. So thank you. And I just say thank God for you. One legend talking about another legend, and another legend on a phone, and another legend sitting right here.
Did we have who's on the phone now?
Keith Bennett.
Keith Bennett. Keith, are you there? Mr. Bennett?
Yes, I'm here.
You
listening to you guys.
You did a very excellent job when you were here last week. But I have to tell Darren one thing. You never let your understudy go to work.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. We have a brother in Joe Spencer. So Joe and I go back. Joe is my heart. Joe is somebody I enjoy being the company. Speaks to you so often and so eloquently and so passionately. And I'm Daryl. I was inspired by your work as a young person coming up. I'm inspired every time I walk in that place. it's an honor being connected to black men who have opened doors and still open doors in an environment where we can be ourselves. That's powerful.
That's
Powerful. Thank you.
That's nice to know. But we are, how can I say it? We are under attack, and we always have been under attack. But we're under attack like never before. And I listen to the words, and it means a lot to me coming from you guys. Amen. And let's see what happens. Thank you.
Well, we have been joined by R.J. Watkins,
The
President.
legendary R.J. Watkins.
You know, I don't know what. Excuse me. When they say everybody says that, and I know what it means, but I don't know what it means.
Well, you just being it. You just
I don't know how one becomes a legend. I don't know how it feels to be a legend. I don't. I shouldn't say. I honor the accolades and people saying that, but what?
There wouldn't be a fast Freddie without an R.J. Watkins. There would be a Cheryl people.
Let me say this too. A legend is somebody who has cross-sectioned generation after generation.
For
And
sure.
so when people are sitting at the table, you might have 3 different generations that can
That's
tell
true.
stories about who R.J. Watkins is, what he
real.
presented, what he did. And that's how you become a legend.
But to me, legends are dead. Sometimes. No.
They're living legends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Living legends.
And
I
then when
accept.
you think about the living legends, RJ, you think about people like
Smokey Robinson is a
Smokey Robinson.
Gordy, Dr. Well, he's not living, but there's living legends.
Reverend Wendell Anthony
Living legend.
and R.J. Watkins.
And that's a steam company to be in.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the key. These are giants that are not just giants, but these are giants that are
call will be
also
recorded.
on your shoulders,
This
building
call
their
is no
legacy
longer
on the
being
shoulders
recorded.
that you have. And that makes the difference on the shoulders that this young man had. Got some broad shoulders too. But that's what we want to make certain of. Ariana, your daughter, and your other daughters and sons, his sons. I mean, that's the legend, and you want to be able to recognize the legends while they can receive the praise and the honor.
I inspired maybe some thousands. You inspired millions. Down through the years.
I'm speechless. I'm speechless. I'll accept. I'll accept.
Let the church say amen.
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 I thank God for everything He's done for me. He's done miracles, miracles on top of miracles. Brady Keys says, the late Brady Keys says,
Yes, sir.
God stepped over people to see about R.J. Watkins, and that come out. I'm not bragging him or nothing like that, but sometimes he don't. But he does. But he steps over people. That's just a figure of speech to take care of me. But he's taking care of everybody. But I think I'm a special child of his.
Amen.
Well, that's the one thing too, because as we've been mentioning on this show today, you never know what tomorrow may bring.
Amen.
Now he'll whoop me. Now he'll whoop me. He'll shake me up. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
It says he chasing whom he loves.
Right, absolutely. Well, we have been.
I want to say one. I
Go
gotta
ahead.
say this. The gentleman that hosted the show for you the other day, he had a pastor. He had a pastor on the TV.
That was Keith Bennett that had the show last Friday.
Keith Bennett.
Right.
He had the pastor on TV, and they were getting deep. They were getting too deep, but I like it. And he said, God said, let us do something. But people never talk. This is way off the letter, but I want to call him and ask him, who was God talking to when he said, let us? Could you answer that, Keith?
Mm-hmm. Because God wasn't always, in my understanding, was not always talking he was talking to what was coming, not always who was there. He was putting things out there for us to know our direction when we came in, and our direction was to look at him for direction, but go out and do his work. So he wasn't always talking to an individual. He was just putting stuff out there, understanding what was coming, understanding that R.J. Watkins was coming, understanding that Darrell Woods was coming, understanding that Darwin Griffin was coming. He understood that. So that's what I think he was talking about. I worked with him long enough to kind of know what he was saying. That was a deep show. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, because that was
I listened.
So that we didn't know where it would go.
I didn't know where it was going, but it went. and he talked about the apple.
Yes.
And I'm gonna let it go after this. He talked about the apple, that Eve bit the apple, right?
Yes.
But his computer in front of him had an apple.
Yes, it did.
And that was a bite mark. I noticed a lot of things.
No, because you just brought up a good point, RJ, because that apple that is on his computer and the apple that gives us access to all of our households all over the world, and our young people have access to things now, is that a good apple or is that a bad apple?
It's temptation.
Yeah.
See, with that biting of the fruit
There you
brought forth temptation.
Yeah.
That's deep, and it's on the computer.
Yeah.
There's so much temptation in that computer.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's deep.
Absolutely.
So I watched that. I noticed that, and I wondered, did he know that was there, or did he pay attention? I just asking. I'm just asking to be.
I will. I'll talk to him. I will.
I'd like to talk to him about
I will.
that. Okay.
Well,
I'm gonna let y'all go back to your show now.
That sounds like, Keith, that might be a return visit.
Absolutely.
Well, that's up to your people. Mr.
Well, we got the man. We got the man right here. That if he makes the request, that he wants to have him back on.
We wants to have you and him back on, and the young lady.
All right.
Yeah. And we can talk
Okay.
about that more.
All right, Keith. Well,
we're over time. We got to get this next show on.
he gave you your marching orders. So,
Okay.
but we are very, very pleased to have had Police Commissioner Darrell Woods on the show with us, RJ, and we definitely want you to come back again as often as you would like, and especially to get an opportunity to talk more about the Freedom Fund dinner.
Absolutely.
And some of the things that you're doing in your role as police commissioner.
Sir,
and
yes, sir.
being over the police commissioners in the city of Detroit. So we'd definitely love to have you come back on again.
And I'm asking both of you gentlemen, I'm demanding you, if I may, to come back.
Yes, sir.
You hear me?
Well, anything you ask, Darwin will tell you. He'll tell you.
Okay.
And you got to wish Keith a happy belated birthday.
Oh yeah. He said how old he was. Happy birthday, Keith.
Thank you.
He said his age on TV the other morning.
Oh, he did?
He did.
Okay. Well, Keith,
Well, I heard it. I don't know.
well, you heard that from RJ. So, Keith.
But I won't mention it since y'all. I'll keep it quiet too. But he did mention it.
75 minus 5.
He did mention it.
Well, Keith, again, happy belated birthday. Thank you for spending, some of your post-birthday with us here on the show today. We have been watching a special edition of Truth to Power, and I'm your host, and I have been fortunate to have the president of Watkins Broadcasting, the legend. Well, I'll let you say the legend.
The legendary R.J. Watkins.
I apologize for going over on the next show and the people that was watching for the next show, but I apologize for that. I just made an executive order. I made an executive decision.
Well, you have been watching a special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. We have been joined again by President R.J. Watkins, by Police Commissioner Darrell Woods, and by the OG. Go ahead and say
OG.
Keith Bennett. We definitely hope that you are going to give the Yop family and keep them lifted up in your thoughts and prayers. Have a great rest of this afternoon.
Peace.
Peace.